Adam.
Yes, Anthony?
Did you have a dream last night?
I don't really remember my dreams.
You don't?
I don't.
Do you ever, if you've never, had your dreams interpreted before?
I mean, sometimes with friends we'll joke about it.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm asking about dreams is because we are here to talk about Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Oh, wow.
The Andrew Lloyd Webber, Tim Rice musical. It is about a dreamer named Joseph. Also a Bible story. You're probably familiar.
I'm very familiar with the Bible story, having gone to Christian schools for 18 years of my life.
I can't wait to get into it with you. I'm Anthony Ruth.
And I'm Adam Hibma.
And this is
We Don't Know How to Love Him.
So today, for our first episode, we're going to be talking about Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which is not only Andrew Lloyd Webber's first musical, written with Tim Rice, but is also in some ways my first musical. When I was 13 years old, I was in the show. I was in the actual North American tour with Donny Osmond.
Wow.
One of the children, one of many, many, probably thousands of children who were in this show across the US and Canada in the 90s. But it really was kind of my gateway into loving musical theater. So I definitely have a soft spot in my heart for this show.
Must have been such a formative experience.
It really was. I'm going to start us off with some history on the show and talking about its evolution over the years. Then we're going to do our rewatch of the 1999 filmed version with Donny Osmond.
And Joan Collins.
Of course. We cannot forget Joan Collins. Special guest appearance. And then we'll wrap it up with our final thoughts on what we love, what we don't love, and what we don't know how to love.
Sounds like a plan.
But before we get into that, let's talk about some recent Andrew Lloyd Webber news. Probably the biggest story we have to cover here is the closing of The Phantom of the Opera on Broadway. The April 16th performance was the last performance of the show. It ran over 35 years.
Hopefully ever.
Currently holds... It ran over 35 years and currently holds the record for the longest running Broadway musical.
Wow.
Almost 14,000 performances.
Oh, wow.
Also the best-selling original cast recording of all time.
Oh, I did not know that. I mean, I guess that makes sense, but I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. 11 of the 29 orchestra members were with the show for its entire run.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And
I mean, that's a good gig. Can you imagine?
Yeah, seriously. Well, and to that point, it's the biggest generator of income and jobs in Broadway and U.S. theatrical history.
I mean, I guess that makes sense if it's the longest running show.
Yeah. So, one thing I want to mention is that Andrew Lloyd Webber dedicated the final performance to his son, Nick, who sadly died shortly before that evening. He died of cancer at quite a young age. He was 43. So we do wish the Andrew Lloyd Webber family our condolences.
Absolutely.
Yeah. While Phantom is now closed, Andrew Lloyd Webber is already hinting that it may be coming back. He told Market Watch that the Phantom is sending him notes from time to time, saying he's quite in love with New York and may not want to be away from Broadway. So we'll see.
Is he sending him notes from Coney Island or wherever the sequel takes place?
You know, I don't know. And I watched, Andrew was on Jimmy Kimmel, and the Phantom sent a note to him and Jimmy, too, that he read on the show that night. So
what did the note say?
I'm not sure. There's no return address, but it said the people of New York need to, watch out or something.
Well, if it's coming back, the people of New York do need to watch out. It's true. They thought they were free.
Touche.
Now, Anthony, the real question I have is, are you wishing it were somehow here again?
Well, yes and no. I am a little bit disappointed that I didn't get a chance to see it again before it closed.
And why didn't you get a chance to see it, Anthony?
Let's save that for the Phantom of the Opera episode.
Okay, sounds good. No
all
spoilers.
Right. However, I've heard that in London, they shut it down for a short time and brought it back. And it's largely the same show, but they have kind of made some elements of it more economical to produce, shall we say.
So they don't have to pay Hal Prince estate royalties or whatever?
I don't know. I think it's still Hale's production largely, but I think some of the set pieces were changed, and I think the orchestra was reduced. Okay. So if that's the version that comes back, again, if it's like 90 to 95% the Hale Prince production, I will go see it. But if it's something else, I probably won't want to.
Fair.
Yeah.
I'll maybe see it with you, possibly.
Well, wouldn't that be nice? But I'm not going to count my chickens.
We'll save that for the Phantom episode, too.
So shortly after Phantom closed, Andrew Lloyd Webber's newest show on Broadway, Bad Cinderella, announced that it is also going to be closing.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah. Bad Cinderella closing.
Yeah, it's Bad Cinderella, not Cinderella.
Right. Ends a 43-year streak of continuously running shows by Andrew Lloyd Webber on Broadway, starting with Evita in 1979.
Wow. And I imagine that is what's the word?
I don't know. I wish it's an audio medium.
I imagine that is
Adam's making these gestures, but I'm not sure what they mean.
Record. Is probably never going to be beaten. I would be surprised.
Yeah, because like who else? I mean, who is even close to that right now?
I mean, Wicked would have to run for another like 23 years or something like that, or Stephen Schwartz have another hit like Wicked.
Yeah. I mean, I think perhaps Lin-Manuel could do it if he comes up with another big show, but he seems pretty busy in the movies right now.
He does. I feel like you're right. Maybe Lin would be the most likely, or Wicked running forever.
Yeah, which could also happen. Interestingly, so right now, Wicked is the fourth in line behind Phantom to be the longest running show, or third in line behind Phantom. We've got Phantom, Chicago, Lion King, then Wicked. So it's got a few rungs of the ladder to cross before it surpasses Phantom.
Of like currently running shows or of all time longest running shows?
Longest running shows.
Oh, like, because like, where's Cats in that?
Fifth.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm so disappointed.
That it's still on there.
Correct.
So anyway, yeah, it's a big record, and I'm sure a big reason why the opening of Bad Cinderella happened when it did was to continue that record.
Let's talk about, I mean, I know a lot of people have talked about Bad Cinderella, so not to belabor it, but it was really well received seemingly in London and then came to New York and was eviscerated by the critics.
Yeah, I'm certainly no expert on this, but I was hopeful given the London reviews. Like, I was kind of excited to see it when it came here, and I will not have the chance.
You won't.
I will not have the pleasure, honestly, shall we say.
Shall we? Also, poor Carolee Carmello. Can someone please write Carolee Carmello like a role that she can play for a long time that is successful and up to her gifts? She was in 2 shows this last season. She was in 1776 and she was in Bad Cinderella, and both closed very quickly. She deserves better.
The next one is for her, I think.
The next Andrew Lloyd Webber?
The next role that comes along, because I think now she's got like the audience, she's got that kind of human interest angle. People are rooting for her. So.
People are rooting for her. We are all rooting for her.
Yeah. Now, when the show announced its closing, did you hear what the producer gave to the company?
Hopefully it was better than the speech Andrew Lloyd Webber gave to the company when the London one closed.
Well, I don't know. The jury is out. I'll be curious to hear your thoughts. She handed them out a prayer card. I don't know if she handed them out, but she had made and had distributed. Her name, by the way, is Christine Schwartzman. She had made and distributed prayer cards to the company with the Bad Cinderella logo on it and what I believe is an original prayer. Would you like to hear it?
I would love to hear it.
Okay.
Should I close my eyes?
Whatever you feel.
Thank you. I'm ready.
It says, Lord, you have wired us to create, to innovate, to lead with new ideas, to set the trends and even blaze a new path. May we, through our artistic expressions, creatively communicate your heart of love, mercy, and grace to a world that needs you. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in your divine plan, whether it be storytelling on stage, screen, or page, if it be dance, music, design, or accounting. I pray that our work be blessed and bring vibrance to our community.
Woof. How much do we want to talk about that?
Well, I'll just say what the New York Post said. I believe they broke this story. They said, the highly unusual move left tongues wagging on Broadway. One stunned wag said, why didn't God fix the book and the set and the choreography and the lyrics and the advertising?
Oh, I want to know who that person is. That's amazing.
Yeah, me too. So we will not be seeing Bad Cinderella this time, but perhaps it will come to a theater near us.
And perhaps we will see it then.
In happier news for Andrew Lloyd Webber, he did compose the coronation anthem for the recent coronation of King Charles and Queen Camilla, Make a Joyful Noise. Have you heard this?
You know, I really meant to listen to it before we recorded.
I'm sure you did.
I have not heard it, so I can't comment.
I'll just say a little bit about the coronation anthem, and maybe you'll choose to listen to it after.
Possibly.
But Andrew was having dinner with King Charles and Queen Camilla. I don't know if he was then the king. Is he the king as soon as the queen dies, or is he not the king until coronation? I feel like there has to be a king in the middle, so... In the interview I watched, Andrew said, I was having dinner with the king and the queen consort.
Okay.
And he said Charles asked if he would write something, and they have a mutual love of the English choral tradition.
Mm.
And so the king had suggested looking at the Wisdom of Solomon, and Andrew zeroed in on Psalm 98, which he said is probably written by Solomon. I don't know. You would know better than me.
Isn't the Wisdom of Solomon Proverbs?
Is there a thing called the Wisdom of Solomon?
Well, Proverbs are like wise sayings, and they were written by Solomon. So that's what made me think it was
just meant,
Proverbs.
Well, maybe... I thought it was Psalm 98.
No, I mean, Proverbs don't even go up that high, so if it's 98, it's Psalm.
He said... Okay, great. Our resident biblical expert. But... He said it. They think it's presumed to be written by Solomon. I don't know. That's what Andrew. I think Andrew was like, right. I like this one, and I think it's by Solomon, so I'm gonna use it. He did change the words a little bit. He said also the king did ask for something that might be hummable, but whether it's hummable is not for me to say.
Oh,
so it was, yeah. It was recorded and performed at the coronation.
Melody. Sorry, never mind. Keep going.
That's a different composer, but yes.
It's true.
Well, so I heard the coronation anthem on the morning of the coronation. Do you want to know what I thought of it?
No.
Okay. Moving on.
No, I do want to hear. Tell her. What did you think of it?
So I do not have a love of the English choral tradition. Despite my choral tradition, I'm not really a big fan of choral music. So my first listen to it, I was kind of like, I don't know. It seems fine. I don't know. Like I didn't know how to judge it really. However, I do think it is quite hummable because it really has stuck in my head and I do find myself walking around humming it. So.
Oh, have you added it to like your workout? Like,
it's definitely not. I mean, maybe there will be a remix, but it's definitely not that type of song as currently recorded.
One can only hope there will be a remix.
Yeah. And then our last bit of news today. So this is hot off the presses since we recorded this episode. So we're recording this news after we recorded the rest of this episode. And there is now going to be a feature film of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, directed by John Chu for Amazon Studios.
Wow. How excited were you when you heard this news?
I was excited. John Chu, of course, directed Crazy Rich Asians, the musical In the Heights, and he's currently working on the feature films, plural, adaptation of Wicked. And this will reunite him with his In the Heights producing partner, Scott Sanders. And the screenplay is going to be by Daniel Goldfarb, who is a playwright and worked on the Apple TV show Little Voice, the Sarah Bareilles project, and 3 seasons of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And he created the HBO Max series Julia, about Julia Child. So lots of good people involved. And I'm excited to see what they do with it.
Absolutely. He's like a modern day Vincent Minnelli.
There you go. So, yeah, I have no idea what it'll be like, but I'm excited to see a new interpretation.
And to be clear, it's a live action. It's not a cartoon.
Well, you might say it's a cartoon either way, but as far as I know, it's a live action. There was nothing said otherwise, so.
I will be fascinated to see how they get, like, those Kanan days and...
Yeah. I wonder if they're going to write and record a new song for it so that it's Oscar eligible.
Oh, in place of those Kanan days?
I don't think that would be the song that would, pique the Academy's interest. But, well, that's it for Andrew Lloyd Webber news.
So much has happened in Lloyd Webber world.
It's remarkable. And there is so much still happening. So we're going to, every history episode, we're going to start with some real news, some living history, if you will, of Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Not just Hillary Clinton's memoir name.
Oh, that's right. I'm going to see her tomorrow.
Wait, what?
She's coming to Chicago Humanities Fest.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I always miss the Humanities Fest. I was actually just talking about that because Andrew Rannells was here.
I feel like it's just all year now. I don't know.
I think so, because isn't there one in, like, the fall by, like, Labor Day or something?
I feel like it's just always going on. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for our news. So we will be right back and get into the history of Joseph. Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat premiered as a 15-minute pop cantata written for Colet Court School, which is the junior school at St. Paul's School in Hammersmith, England. It was the end of Easter term concert, and at the time that it was written, Andrew Lloyd Webber was 19 years old, and Tim Rice was 23 years old.
He was 19.
He was 19. He had, I guess, I don't know if he had technically dropped out at that point, but he was, not attending Oxford, which was the college he was in, and he was focusing on his music. And they were writing songs together, and they were invited to write this piece. It had to be something that the whole school could sing, and they had previously had success with sort of pop or more modern musical versions of Bible stories. And so they came up with the idea for Joseph looking at the Wonder Book of Bible Stories.
Did you say that they had success?
The school had success in previous concerts. So it was performed. It was about 15 minutes. Some sources say 20. It's a little bit unclear.
If anyone out there was there that day or night, whatever it was, who knows how long it was, please.
Yes, please let us know.
Please let us know.
Now, the title was inspired by the Randy Newman song Simon Smith and the Amazing Dancing Bear, which was...
I've never heard of that song.
I had never heard of it either, but it is a song. It was a hit at the time for Alan Price, and it's also been recorded by Randy Newman and also by Harry Nilsson.
Okay.
So, yeah. They added Technicolor because Andrew said it seemed a cool way of saying many colors, and moreover, Technicolor Dreams with all their 1960s connotations were definitely the stuff of the moment. Now, I don't think I said this was March 1st, 1968 is when the show premiered, so it was in the 60s. Other titles they considered: Pal Joseph.
Wait, really?
Yeah, well, that's what he said.
I mean, okay, Pal Joseph.
Yeah, and How to Succeed in Egypt Without Really Trying.
That's funny. So even from the beginning, he was derivative, huh?
Oh, okay. Is this the kind of show we're gonna have?
I'll try to be nice.
Okay. They wrote the whole piece in about 2 months. They sketched out the plot, and then their process was Andrew would write the melodies, and Tim would fit his lyrics to the melodies.
After the fact.
Yeah, and that was pretty much their style of working throughout their collaboration. Importantly, this show introduced the sung-through style that would really become certainly the format of all the Rice Lloyd Webber collaborations, and is Andrew's favorite format, he says. So in his book, Andrew says, I didn't realize it at the time, but in my attempt to write music that would never allow its kid performers to get bored, I was unwittingly creating what was to become my trademark, a through-sung musical, i.e. a score with little or no spoken dialogue, where the musical structure, key relationships, rhythms, and use of time signatures, not just the melodies, are vital to its success. I feel like Andrew is really into his time signatures. Like, he's very proud. He says somewhere else in this book about, like, all his shows have, like, a 5/4 or, like, a 7/4 section somewhere. Like, he's very proud of that.
What was that in this show?
I think it was maybe the Who's the Thief, or yeah, I feel like it was that stop. You robbers your little numbers up. One of us has stolen your precious golden cup.
Oh.
I think it might have been that part.
I've already forgotten that song.
Well, that's too bad.
Thanks for bringing it back to memory.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So the first concert was a big success, and they wanted to repeat it. So they repeated it just a few months later in May at Central Hall, Westminster. So luck would have it, in the audience that day, one of the children's fathers, Derek Jewell, who was a critic for the Sunday Times, wrote a glowing review of the show with the headline Pop Goes Joseph, saying the performance emphasized the rich expansiveness of pop rather than the limitations of its frontiers. Now, whenever I hear about Joseph being pop, I sort of go, huh? Because, like, I know it as this big West End Broadway show. I hear it as very much maybe a more pop inclined, but very much like a Broadway sound, a theater sound. But I went back and listened to the first recording, which was made around this time, the Decca album.
That's the one I was talking. Yeah, that I also listened to the Decca album.
And what did you think?
I loved it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I should talk about this now or not, but I loved the Decca recording.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say more.
I thought it was fresh, original, sounded very much of that time, like late 60s. I mean, it almost had like and I don't know the music of that time very well, but like almost like a Simon and Garfunkel sort of vocal quality to it. And in its pared down, more chamber-like version, I thought the material was better supported by that size of a production. I don't think the material can support something that as bloated as it has become. I really enjoyed listening to the Decca recording.
Yeah, I had never heard it before in all my years of knowing this show.
And all your fandom and
all my exactly. And you know, when I was in the show, you couldn't just like go online and hear this. Like, there was no Spotify.
Internet.
Yeah, there was no internet. And so
sorry.
No, you're right.
Know,
there wasn't. And so, I mean, there probably was, but it wasn't like in everyone's home like it is now, or in our hands. And so I had no way of hearing it back then, and never got around to listening to it until now. And what I heard in it was, I think, and what he talks about in the book is he was very influenced at the time by like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band and the MacArthur Park song, and this more kind of like Baroque pop, I guess you might call it, or like and I certainly hear like a Beatles influence when I listen to that original recording. There's just this bop to it. It's even like in the backing vocals, the ba-ba-bas, and like I definitely can hear why it was thought of as pop, and pop as in popular music, I suppose, not necessarily like the pop that's like top 40 today, but I can definitely hear why it was thought of in those conventions back then.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the recording as well. So the show was expanded then to be about 40 minutes to make that vinyl recording. And this really kind of was the start of this pattern of Andrew Lloyd Webber having like sort of hit records in advance of his shows being staged, which then they did again with Jesus Christ Superstar and again with Evita, and like even, you know, in the 80s and 90s he was doing that with like Phantom and Sunset Boulevard, putting out records before his shows. The first single, do you know what the first single was?
No.
Close Every Door.
I was trying to guess.
Backed with Coat of Many Colors.
Oh, like A-side, B-side?
Yeah. I think Coat of Many Colors to me is like the most Beatles-esque song on there. And then as a second single, they released Potiphar. It wouldn't be my first choice, but or my second choice.
No.
It's not one of my favorites.
Not an A-side or a B-side.
No. But do you know who played the Pharaoh?
No.
Tim Rice.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
In which version?
Well, he was the Pharaoh in the first performances, and I'm pretty sure he was the Pharaoh on the recording as well.
Huh.
Yeah.
Like the Decca recording?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Good for Tim Rice.
Yeah.
Did he perform in other things, I wonder?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
That was the beginning and end of his performing career.
Now, so that was 1969 that album came out. The first staging that I am aware of was September 1972 at the Edinburgh Festival. That was directed by Frank Dunlop, and he came up with the role of the narrator, which was played at that time by a man named Peter Reeves.
And it's worth noting that I think all the productions up until that point, it's basically just all men singing.
It is, you're right. And the children who, I guess it was a boys' school, so they were mostly boys. So it really was, or all boys. So it really was a big gaggle of guys.
Gaggle of guys performing Joseph.
But then, so that production, the narrator was played by Peter Reeves. Joseph was played by Gary Bond. And to kind of create those roles, they just changed some of the lyrics from third person to first person to give Joseph more to sing. But Andrew says that really unlocked the door to the full-length Joseph that is performed today, like coming up with that narrator structure.
You know, some might say it's unfortunate that door didn't stay closed, but...
Well, you know, there's all recordings for all people. Like, you can enjoy the Decca, and I can enjoy the Canadian cast recording with Janet Metz and Donny Osmond.
It's true. It's truly like a Myers-Briggs test.
It is.
Like, which is your personality?
Right.
I'm a Decca.
I'm a Canadian cast recorder.
BuzzFeed needs to create some sort of quiz. Which recording of Joseph are you?
Yeah. Now, that production was actually adapted to a TV version, which I also watched on YouTube.
A TV version?
There was a TV version of that Frank Dunlop Joseph production.
And that was the original that was the original
That was
West
the Edinburgh.
End. Oh, that was the Edinburgh.
Yeah. But it did eventually go to the West End. So the Edinburgh one, yes, it opened in the West End. The first half was a new piece by Rice and Lloyd Webber called Jacob's Journey, which was like a prequel to Joseph.
Oh.
That was not sung through. And eventually that was dropped, and Joseph was expanded to create a full evening. So after they scrapped Jacob's Journey, they expanded the show, and they added the songs One More Angel in Heaven, Those Canaan Days, and Benjamin Calypso. And then Frank Dunlop also directed a version that played at Brooklyn Academy of Music in 1976, which starred Cleveland Little as the narrator and David Carroll as Joseph. David Carroll, I believe, is Stephen Sondheim's favorite Bobby. He played Bobby off-Broadway after the original had closed. And I feel like I read somewhere that his version of Being Alive was Stephen Sondheim's favorite.
Oh, God, let's talk more about that.
Do you know what Andrew Lloyd Webber's first Broadway show that he saw was on Broadway?
Being that we're talking about Stephen Sondheim, that's a good guess. Was it Company?
It was Company.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay, so now we come to the Manhattan premiere of Joseph in 1981, which made a Broadway transfer in 1982. In his review, Mel Gusso of the New York Times says, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat was the first Andrew Lloyd Webber Tim Rice musical to be produced. Since then, the show has been expanded, recorded, taped for television, and staged in various cities of the world, including an engagement at Brooklyn Academy of Music.
And beaten to death.
Perhaps. Last night, Joseph received its professional Manhattan premiere at the Entermedia Theater in a production directed and choreographed by Tony Tanner. In contrast to the raucous version in Brooklyn in 1976, it proved to be a buoyant musicalization of an oft-told Old Testament tale. In the diversity and the tunefulness of the songs, it is also a harbinger of Lloyd Webber to come. From Jesus Christ Superstar to Evita to the current London hit Cats. The young, classically trained, popular composer is one of the most inventive artists in contemporary musical theater.
This was a New York Times
review?
This
was New York Times, 1982.
That's shocking. I didn't think he got that many good reviews.
Or 1981, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says, it is decidedly a musical for young people, the sort of show that could serve as an introduction to theater. Which certainly was the case for me.
Aww.
Yeah. That production, when it was on Broadway, was nominated for 7 Tony Awards, ran for 747 performances, almost 2 years. That production used a female narrator, Laurie Beachman.
Laurie Beachman. Oh, R.I.P. Laurie Beachman.
What are your associations with Laurie Beachman?
So Barbara Streisand.
Is there any other?
Sings the song "You'll Never Walk Alone," and that is Laurie Beachman's arrangement of it, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And so she,
like, Laurie Beachman wrote the arrangement, or it was made for her.
It was made for her. Yeah, and she sings it beautifully, and just such a talented performer that was taken from us way too soon.
Absolutely true. And Andrew says of her, Laurie's performance was so definitive that from then onwards, the narrator has usually been played by a woman.
So definitive, and they also realized we should probably have a woman in this production.
Right. But yes, definitely taken way too soon. And she also had a big success in Cats. She was the original touring Grisabella in the U.S. And then she came back and replaced Betty Buckley on Broadway. And she played, I think, Grisabella more than anyone else.
Oh, wow.
Certainly on Broadway, probably around the world. She came back and did it for the closing performance, I think, too. Or she did it for when it became the longest running show. She came back and did that performance as Grisabella. Okay. Yeah. Bob Hutton originally played Joseph in that production. And then he was briefly replaced by Andy Gibb, brother of Barry Gibb.
Yeah.
And then by David Cassidy. And I think this is where the tradition of having Joseph played by like a teen idol started.
With David Cassidy?
Yeah, because... And it makes a lot of sense because Joseph has to go from being 17 to 40 in the show.
That's quite a range.
Roughly, yeah. You know, you want someone who's probably older than 17, but sort of can pull that off, and like a teen idol is kind of frozen in that teenage space for many fans. So that makes a lot of sense as casting. Then the next real major production doesn't come until 1991, and that is the big London Palladium production that is the basis for the Broadway version in the 90s and the North American tour that I was in with Donny Osmond. This is billed as Andrew Lloyd Webber's new production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I'm sure it is no coincidence that in between those years, Andrew and Tim had bought back the full copyright of the show. I think they owned about 80% of it, and then eventually they got all 100. So I'm sure he was waiting for that before mounting a big production of his own.
He is nothing if not a smart businessman.
He is a smart businessman. So that version was directed by Stephen Pimlott, Anthony Van Last choreographed, and that starred Jason Donovan, who was an Australian TV and pop star since he was 11. It was a huge hit. It broke all the box office records in London. It was nominated for 5 Olivier Awards, and Mark Thompson won for Best Set Designer, and he also designed the costumes. And I really love the design of that show. I think it works so well, and I think that is really part of what made it so big and successful. And a lot of these elements are seen in the video that we're going to talk about. The costumes are about 90% the same. The sets are a little bit different because it wasn't filmed on a stage. It was filmed like on a sound stage. But they're certainly adapted from the sets that we used in the theater. The other thing I love about that production is the logo. I just think it's so clever and creative. It's like the words Joseph, and they're kind of like, they're like fabric. There's like movement to them, and you see the It's right here. I have the poster up. Adam's looking up in the air like, what does it look like? And I'm like, it's right here behind me.
It is a giant poster that I'm somehow missing.
But it has like movement to it, like fabric, and it has the rainbow kind of poking through the letters. The words are sort of hanging on a coat hanger. And I believe this was designed by De Winters, which is a theater agency in London, who also designed like the Cats logo, the Phantom logo, Les Mis, Miss Saigon, all those big 80s and 90s musical logos. And I think one of the reasons a lot of people, especially a lot of theater people, I think, dislike Andrew Lloyd Webber is kind of the commercialization of his shows. But for me, as a person who works in marketing and loves design and loves logo design.
As an expert in this field.
You might say that. I just love the logos, and I especially love this one. So for me, it's like a reason that I actually get more into the shows. It works on me. But I can understand why some people don't like it. This was the most successful production in the history of the Palladium at the time. The single of Any Dream Will Do and the album were both #1 in the UK for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And this production utilized a children's choir. There were 100 kids on stage. No, 50. 50 kids on stage at a time.
That is a lot of children on stage.
It is. And Stephen Pimlott, the director, said about directing kids, it's much easier than directing grown-ups. A, they do what they're told, and B, on the whole, they do it better.
Oh. Do you feel personally like that's about you?
I never worked directly with him. By that time, we were working with, like, a stage manager or something. We were put into the show, okay? So, like, we weren't, like, creating the role of child in the show.
Child 49.
I did have a my number was red 4.
Red 4?
My costume was red, and I was number 4.
Oh. Were you, like, jealous of red 1? Were you like, how do I become
You
red
know
1?
what? The numbers were related to height.
Oh, okay.
So I think what they did was they lined us all up by height. And then they just counted us off. So the 7 tallest people were red 1, orange 1, yellow 1, green 1, blue 1, purple 1, pink 1. And then the next 7 tallest were 2. The next 7 tallest were 3. And they just did it like that. So I think it was kind of random.
Okay.
So I was in the 4th tallest group.
So that means you were the 22nd, the 28th tallest person there.
Something like that. Yeah. Good math.
I do math. Thank you.
Yeah. 7 squared. Good job. So that production from London is what then was remounted in North America, the North American premiere in Toronto with Donny Osmond. That was also the American premiere when the production moved to Minneapolis.
Minneapolis?
Yeah.
My hometown.
Your home state and town. Now, do you remember it at all? Do you remember hearing about it?
No.
I wonder how old you were then.
What year was this?
92.
I was very young. I'm not going to say
Define.
I'm not going to say how old.
Well,
I was
okay.
very young.
All right, fine. So I did a little math myself. And so playing Joseph for over 2,000 performances, Donny Osmond would have sung Any Dream Will Do and Close Every Door over 4,000 times on stage, not counting rehearsals and promotional appearances.
Wow.
Yeah, because both songs are sung twice in the show.
That's how it became an hour-and-a-half long musical down from...
It is, actually. So around that same time, a second American production was mounted.
Well, like a rival production?
Well, I wouldn't call it a rival because...
Was this like a Patti LuPone and Glenn Close sort of situation?
You know, it never evolved into that, as far as I know. And it was actually a different production company that mounted it. But that production opened in Los Angeles, and it starred Michael Damian as Joseph. He was from The Young and the Restless.
Oh.
And he also had, like, a recording career as well. They actually did a tie-in with The Young and the Restless, where his character on the show was also in Joseph.
Like, was this like an amnesia thing where, like, he was conked on the head and then believed he was Joseph?
No, it was like his character on the show was also a singer, and so he was cast in Joseph. And they actually had a scene where Andrew Lloyd Webber calls him to tell him he got the part.
Oh my god, really?
I don't know if Andrew was in the scene or it was just like Andrew,
audio.
we have Andrew Lloyd Webber for you on the phone. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And then he was just reacting to him like...
Maybe a reaction.
Oh my god.
Right.
I just got cast.
But the director and some of the cast were on the soap.
Okay.
As part of the tie-in.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. But that production did go to Broadway, and so speaking of how they expanded it into a full length, Ben Brantley said of the show, he says, there are also presumably real people on the stage, lots of them. There's a multiracial chorus of 50 children who, clad in white and bright-colored sports clothes, suggest a United Colors of Benetton ad. They hum, bounce, and clap their hands and are allowed, like the other cast members, to repeat some of the musical's big numbers. Such reprises are what stretch the 70-some minute score into a show of more than 2 hours.
Oh my god. It was 2 hours?
I don't think ours was 2 hours.
I hope not.
Maybe with intermission.
Because they repeat everything like 4 times.
Well, they repeated it even more.
Oh.
Because in the version we watched, it pretty much ends after Any Dream Will Do, and then they have the credits with, like, the remix playing underneath.
Yeah.
In our version, after Any Dream Will Do, the curtain comes down, the kids do a reprise of Close Every Door with Donny. Then the curtain goes up, and then they do the whole mega mix, which is like 8 minutes or something.
Is this before, like...
8 or 12 minutes.
Is this before curtain call?
So there's, like, multiple curtain calls. So after Any Dream Will Do, there's bows.
Okay.
Then you, like, think the show's over, but the curtain comes down and Donny does... They call it a reprise, but it's really more of it plays more like an encore.
Of Close Every Door?
Yeah.
It's also, like, kind of a sad song to encore.
It is, but he'd already done Any Dream Will Do twice.
So he couldn't do that again.
Like, what else is he going to say?
Was it, like, an upbeat version? Was it, like...
No.
Oops.
No.
It was like the
it
sad
was not
version
a remix
with children sitting around. Just
it was the sad version, but he wasn't, like, in jail at that point. He was wearing his, like, gold regalia.
Okay.
So it was like a triumphant version, I guess. But
a triumphant Close Every Door to me.
Yes.
Makes so much sense.
Well, it's really to show off his singing.
Okay.
He really is a good singer.
And it's a rangy song.
It is, and he sings it really... He is actually a very good singer. And so we sang that with him, and then curtain comes up, then the remix happens. The remix is just, like, a series of bows. Like, kind of every soloist comes out and, like, kind of redoes a clip of their solo and does, like, a bow.
Every child. Read for.
Every child has their own bow.
Wait, is that actually true?
No.
Okay, thank God. I wouldn't be surprised. Needed to clarify. Did you bow with the Reds, or did you all bow together?
I don't think the kids really had a bow other than the main bow after Any Dream Will Do.
Oh my God. Okay.
But we were on stage for the whole mega mix, and then I think at the end of the mega mix there's another series of bows.
How many times do you think Donny would bow in, like, a standard production of this?
Oh, probably at least 7.
Wow.
But I don't feel like that's excessive.
No.
It's just, it was very spread out.
Yeah, it wasn't like 7.
Like, normally it'd be like 7 at once.
Yeah.
And this was like 7 over like 20 minutes.
So long.
I know. And so now we come to the video, which was done in 1999, as I said, based on the Stephen Pimlott production. Directed by him and David Mallet, who produced many, many music videos or directed many videos, and also the Cats video. So we're going to get deep into that production. Before we do that, I just want to say that there is now a new production that was revived at the Adelphi Theatre in the West End, which was actually where the first West End production of Joseph played. And then it reopened at the Palladium after COVID. It stars Jack Yarrow as Joseph. The original production of that was with Sheridan Smith, who also played Funny Girl, as the narrator. And then Jason Donovan, the original revival Joseph, came back and played the Pharaoh.
Do we know who Jack Yarrow is?
This was his first big role. He was cast out of college.
He's not a teen idol.
He's not a teen idol. And do you ever watch Mickey Joe Theater on YouTube?
No.
He has a YouTube channel about, like, West End theater, but he talks about Broadway too. I think you'd enjoy him.
Oh, actually, maybe I think I've maybe seen that. Was there an episode about Funny Girl?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I've seen him.
Yeah, I enjoy him. He did a review of this production, and he pointed out that they've sort of flipped the casting where Joseph is not really the star anymore. The star is, like, the narrator and the Pharaoh. And he says even the way it's staged, like, they are kind of more the stars than Joseph.
The Pharaoh? That's in...
Yeah, well, because Jason Donovan was really a big star in London and in the original Joseph.
Even in the one that we saw, the narrator is very much...
She has the most to say.
She has the most to say.
Yeah. He also said that they kind of changed the keys. Like, I think Sheridan Smith doesn't have, like, the range of the typical narrator role.
Oh, I'm guessing. That narrator role is high.
So he was a little disappointed in some of the changes they made.
Patty would have been disappointed too. It's a regular
she hates
Madonna.
when they change the keys.
It's a Madonna moment happening.
I have clipped and saved an interview with her where she says they changed the keys.
The Andy Cohen interview?
It's not the Andy Cohen. It's from Interviews, INNER.
Oh, is it from like the late 90s?
Yeah. From PBS. Yeah, we'll put it on our Instagram.
Wonderful.
Yeah, she's like, they changed the keys, and it's like an opera. You can't do that. You don't just make Mimi a mezzo soprano.
So good.
It changes the whole tenor of the piece.
If you would like Anthony to lip sync to, remember when Randy Rainbow used to do that?
Yes.
Back before
I would do that.
You should.
My Patti LuPone lip sync.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, that really brings us to today with Joseph. We are going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and recap the 1999 video.
Sounds great.
You know, Adam, I love a long podcast, especially one about Andrew Lloyd Webber. But I think maybe we should come back with our recap of the 1999 video of Joseph in a part 2 episode. What do you think?
I think that's a really good idea. I know you love a long podcast, but, you know, when it gets to be the length of how long Joseph feels.
Like longer than Joseph actually is. Yeah.
It's a problem.
Yeah. But before we go, you have a fun segment that you want to do.
I would like to introduce you to a segment that we will call What Andrew Lloyd Webber Song is Giving You Life This Week?
Wow, that really rolls off the tongue.
Definitely.
So catchy.
So catchy. I hope no one steals our idea. Or perhaps like what Andrew Lloyd Webber song is giving you blank this week. It doesn't always have to be giving you life, but...
I was going to say, like, do you typically have a song that's Andrew Lloyd Webber song giving you life in a given week?
I'm going to have to work really hard for this segment.
Yeah. Doesn't strike me as a natural for you.
No, but I will do my best for you, Anthony, to come up with something for this segment.
All right.
So,
well, I have one. Should I go first?
I guess take it away. What Andrew Lloyd Webber song is giving you life this week, Anthony?
All right. So with the 35th anniversary of Phantom and the closing, Andrew released a new single of Think of Me. And it's Think of Me, parentheses, Broadway Trio 2023. Oh. And it's a trio performance featuring the actors who play Christine, Raoul, and Phantom in the closing cast. So that was Emily Kuachu, John Riddle as Raoul, and Ben Crawford as Phantom. And I don't typically spend a lot of time revisiting the Phantom recording or score. And when I do, I tend to skip over Think of Me because it's like one of the first songs. And it's not a song that repeats really in the show. And I just tend to skip over it. And this recording really brought me back to kind of hearing it for the first time. And I think it really is a very beautiful song. I think it's maybe my favorite song in Phantom and maybe one of the best Andrew Lloyd Webber songs there is, I might dare to say. Now, I don't think that it is I don't for a second think it sounds like a real opera aria, which is kind of what it's positioned to be in the show. But it's a very pretty song, and I really loved this version of it. And I found myself listening to it on repeat and singing it and playing on piano and trying to sing along. And it's really beautiful. So I encourage everyone to check it out.
Wow. The gauntlet has been thrown as far as what'd you call it? The best Andrew Lloyd Webber song?
One of his most beautiful, I would say.
Okay. One of his most beautiful.
And maybe I may have said one of his best. I think beautiful and best. Either way. I think it's up there. I think it's very pretty.
I wonder if you liked this recording because it is a recording of the best cast to ever perform Phantom.
Is that what he said?
Yes, that's what he said about the closing cast.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Yeah. Well, I've seen all of them. No, just kidding. I've seen none of them. I saw the touring cast in like 1994. That's the only cast I've seen of Phantom. And the movie, of course. But I did think they all had fantastic voices. And I'm not going to say whether they're the best or not, but I think they were very, very good.
Good. I do feel like that's a little shady for all the other people who performed it, but not what you're saying, what Andrew said.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, it is. It's, yeah.
I mean, his wife originated it. I mean, his ex-wife.
Yeah. I think he was just swept up in the moment of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess it's my turn.
Adam, what Andrew Lloyd Webber song is giving you life this week? Or is giving you blank this week, if not life?
You know, if there are 2 Andrew Lloyd Webber songs... Oh, I shouldn't say 2. Well, I already did. If there are 2 Andrew Lloyd Webber songs that I've always tolerated better than others...
Oh my God.
They have been the 2 songs that Barbara sings on Back to Broadway. And I'm going to focus on As If We Never Said Goodbye.
Okay.
I think she brings such drama to that song. It's actually rather lovely. I know some people find it, I've heard some people find it kind of boring because it repeats a lot. But
who have you heard say that?
I think maybe my fellow podcast host has said something akin to that.
I have said that.
But I think it is a rather lovely song that really captures the emotion of Norma it's one of my favorite movies, of Norma as she's going back to the studio. I think it beautifully captures kind of that excitement that she's feeling. I sang it my sophomore year of college when the floor that I was on freshman year, sophomore year, I wasn't on that floor anymore. I was living in a different dorm, and they were doing a coffee shop, like a coffee house sort of evening. And I sang As If We Never Said Goodbye.
Oh my gosh.
And changed the lyrics to make it about like the floor, like Fisher 2 East is the floor that it was.
Of course you did. Oh my gosh.
I know.
Do you have a recording of this?
No, I wish I did. I might have the lyrics written out somewhere, like my own like personalized lyrics.
I bet you do. Find those lyrics.
Actually, the first line is coming to me.
Okay, what is it? But don't sing.
Say what you were saying. Say what you were saying first, though. Find those lyrics, because maybe we won't. Maybe
find those lyrics, and then if we ever have a launch party where we sing songs, we can sing it there.
Oh, that sounds exciting. That's a great idea. The one lyric that's coming to mind for me is, when I'm coming back to this dorm that I don't live in anymore, I don't know why I'm frightened. I know my way around here. The lobby rats, the midnight chats, the sound here.
Oh, that's quite good, actually.
Thank you. I'm a regular.
You could be Andrew's collaborator. I want to say, I think there are 2 lyricists, and I want to say it's Don Black and Christopher Hampton.
Okay. Well,
does that sound right?
And soon it'll be Adam Hibma. So,
well, it's never too late.
It's never at all. So I would say that song is giving me life this week.
I love it. You are an Andrew Lloyd Webber fan even back in college.
Something like that.
Who knew? I'm learning so much about you.
I might phrase it that Barbara elevated his music to the point that I can appreciate it.
We've covered one of 2 songs that you can tolerate better than others. And we have like at least 5 more episodes of this show to do. So I wonder what other songs you're going to do. I'm very curious. But that is a wrap for this episode. And thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe so that you can listen to part 2 and hear our recap of the 1999 video of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat starring Donny Osmond and Joan Collins.
And Joan Collins, yes.
Yes. You can also follow us on Instagram at How to Love Him Pod. Until next time, I'm Anthony Ruth.
And I'm Adam Hibma. And we don't know how to love him.